I recently went back and played the entirety of Watch Dogs 1 again from start to finish. My god, do I have to say, Ubisoft dropped the ball so freaking hard on the universe of Watch Dogs. Like, Watch Dogs 2 is not a bad game, it's an okayish game, but they buried the freaking series when they released Watch Dogs Legion, and I'm not sure why they did that. Like, you had a tried and tested formula which people really liked. Like, when you released your E3 trailer, obviously people were really hyped, but yeah, you did receive some backlash when the actual gameplay came forward. But overall, people still liked the game. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed the story of Watch Dogs. I obviously didn't do any of the side content. I just did the main content, and yet I felt so relieved. I felt so vindicated playing the entire game. Usually when I play some games which is story driven, there is usually a point of like a plateau in terms of nothing major happens in the story and you're just pushing through and developing your side characters, which is usually an annoying part that every video game has, like some video games go through when it comes to their narrative stories. But this game didn't have that. This game was from the start to finish, everything that happened, every act that happened, every chapter had some deep meaning to it. Like, spoiler alert for the story of the game, I guess it's been like a decade old. I'll be really honest, I didn't like Watch Dogs 2 as much as I liked Watch Dogs 1, and I hated Legion. I don't want to even go there. But Watch Dogs 1 had an amazing story, and that's what I want from a video game. Usually, the way stories operate in single player games is you have a few mechanics at your disposal, and the story sort of builds upon those mechanics. One of the major things for an open world game is to have a good environment, a good city, and this game delivered in that. Like, every nook and corner, there is something that you can do. I think this game sort of was overshadowed when it came out. This game was during the time GTA 5 released, and obviously GTA 5 is a better game than Watch Dogs. I'm not going to argue against that. Watch Dogs had a lot of cool mechanics. The weapon play was so good. The driving was immaculate. Everything about the game ran crispy smooth. Obviously, there were some bugs here and there, but the story overarchingly was pretty good. So, spoiler alert for the story again. The story starts off with Aiden Pierce, who is like the main character. I'm just going to refer to him as a protagonist. His niece sort of ends up getting killed when Aiden Pierce, the protagonist, and her are out on a trip. So the whole game is him seeking out vengeance against people who killed his niece. And it sort of feels like a personal game. Like, the story feels personal because the stakes are so high. As a hacker, you're obviously a criminal, and you've engaged with some really shady people, but they're taking out your family just adds that layer of personalization to it. Just adds that layer of, okay, this story is a serious story. Like, the tone of the story immediately becomes serious. So throughout the game, you discover various bosses, various kingpins. There are basically three other characters, my bad. There are basically three other characters, which is Clara, T-Bone, and what's that Asian dude's name? And some Asian dude, I forgot his name, my bad. So basically, you have these three people, and there are a few instances, like the reason for which the main story plotline progresses. It sort of felt dull sometimes, but I mean, that's not a major reason to think about. Going forward, I think Ubisoft really dropped the ball when it came to the franchise of Watch Dogs. I feel like Watch Dogs should have been such a big franchise had they just expanded on the story of Aiden Pierce itself rather than diverging into other Watch Dogs 2 is about DedSec, which is one of the other friendly hacker groups. And they introduced a lot of new characters and just completely forgot about the old characters. Obviously, there are some old characters that come back in 2, but it's nothing major and doesn't help them the plot points. And it doesn't help Watch Dogs 2 in the plot. Watch Dogs Legion was a whole other mess, which I don't want to talk about. But I don't want to talk about how what Watch Dogs could have been. like it when it was pitched as something like a competitor to the Grand Theft Auto series. Obviously it didn't live up to the hype of GTA 5, but like it could have been its own entity had they released a second game which was really good, and they could have just retained the city and polished all the other mechanics exactly like the way they did with Assassin's Creed 2, where they polished all the mechanics. They gave a whole new set of challenges, a whole new set of story plot points in Assassin's Creed 2 over Assassin's Creed 1, and that refreshing take just propelled Assassin's Creed franchise, and it's still running to this day. But Watch Dogs is essentially killed off. I don't know if they're going to be releasing another Watch Dogs game in the future. Games like Watch Dogs, Sleeping Dogs, Grand Theft Auto, all these games are really close to my heart because I remember back in the day as a kid, like every other Indian kid does, we would go to a cyber cafe and mess around in Grand Theft Auto, Vice City, or San Andreas, or whatever your jam is. For me, my first Grand Theft Auto game was GTA 3, so I used to mess around a lot in that game, and that's one of the reasons open world games where you have literally unlimited freedom has such a close part and has such a huge impact in me. And I really love these games to the point where I don't mind bearing out the deficiencies in this game if they offer a good story, a good character that you essentially end up caring about. And Watch Dogs did that. Like if any other obviously I feel like in that era of Ubisoft games, like you had Watch Dogs, you had Assassin's Creed Black Flag, both amazing games in their own right. I feel like everything went downhill for Ubisoft from there. I'm not gonna say that the new games of Ubisoft are bad. They're obviously great games, and I feel like if you're a fan of Ubisoft games and if you're a fan of the Assassin's Creed franchise, you will end up liking those games. Like you'll not completely hate those games, is what I meant. But I don't want to say that they just dropped the biggest ball when it came to Watch Dogs. Like it could have been such a good franchise. It could have been something good, but it is what it is, I guess. So my experience with Watch Dogs, I think I took like 20 hours to complete the game. I took my own sweet time, played it in normal difficulty because I wanted to enjoy the narrative of the game, and it was a really fun game. A lot of people were annoyed online on like the little clock puzzles. I absolutely freaking love those clock puzzles. They were really exciting. None of them were challenging, but they were really exciting, which is great. And every other side character in the game. So you have Clara, T-Bone. What's the other side character? Let me just check the other side character's name. So all the side characters, you have Clara, T-Bone, and Jordi. All these side characters you end up caring for all these side characters because like all of them play such a huge influence and role on your protagonist, and each of them have their own things to offer. You have one person who's like an expert fixer. You have Clara, she's also like an expert hacker. So is Raymond Kennedy, who's T-Bone. Yeah, so you have all these people who assist Aiden in his mission, and it's not like these people unanimously just stood up to the occasion and helped the protagonist because the plot felt it was convenient. Like Aiden had to do something for them in order for them to help Aiden out. So this is a really good game in the sense that the side characters also feel lifelike and they're just not there to help boost the main character, but the main character also is a pretty emotional, pretty centered person. He's very pragmatic and has this sort of aura around him like towards the end of the game. Also the missions in this game were super fun. Some of the missions usually they fall under infiltration or eavesdropping or hack this terminal, stuff like that, but I actually had really fun. I thought it would get monotonous after some point, but it never did because there was always some challenge to offer in each act, in each chapter. Towards the end of the mission, there is like the last few missions in this game I feel were really well done. Towards the end of the mission, towards the end, like you have all the missions are, I don't want to say hard, but they're tricky, and especially the last mission was super fun. So essentially in the last mission, the main villain in the game basically takes control of CTOS, which is the central operating hub of the city through which you can hack different things in the city. So he basically takes control of the CTOS, and he basically sends a bunch of cops behind you and basically triggers everything in the city. So it gets really hard for you to traverse to the city, but there are also cops behind you, so it gets really fun and exciting. I obviously died a ton in that mission, but it was really fun. Again, like when it comes to like a difficulty in a game, it's not about difficulty for the sake of difficulty, but it's difficulty where you're looking forward to overcome it, and this game obviously had that sort of difficulty element to it, which sometimes other games lack, because other games just make things difficult for the sake of making things difficult. Like here, the difficulty is also used as a plot point in the overarching story. Like it's not just thrown around willy-nilly, and you're not just told to accept those plot points. Like when the difficulty is tuned up, it's because of something that's happening in the fictional world of Watch Dogs. Again, pretty cool game, told a very mature story, told a very bold story, but I just feel like they dropped the ball when it came to that franchise. And hopefully if Ubisoft ends up making another Watch Dogs game, they just take direct inspiration from Watch Dogs 1 and basically build upon that game instead of like reinventing the formula like they did with Legion, which I'm not going to say it's a bad game, but not a lot of people enjoyed that. Anyways, yeah, that's been about it. See ya.